Sorry to say, but you are fired," my supervisor David Harrison announced, sliding termination papers across the gleaming conference table at Meridian Financial Group. Tomorrow marked my $6 million bonus vesting date. I simply nodded, keeping my expression neutral. 2 hours later, their lead lawyer, Janet Morrison, read the employment clause I had strategically flagged 8 months earlier. She slowly removed her glasses, stared directly at CEO William Ashford, and her face went completely pale. The corporate predators who thought they could steal my earnings were about to discover their biggest mistake. Growing up on a cattle ranch in rural Montana taught me that success requires both patience and precision. My father spent 18-hour days mending fences and caring for livestock, while my mother graded papers by lamplight after teaching 3rd grade all day. They instilled in me the belief that honest work deserves honest compensation. Neither of them understood when I earned a full scholarship to Northwestern University for finance and economics, leaving behind rolling pastures for Chicago skyscrapers. 12 years ago, I walked into Meridian Financial Group as an entry-level analyst, clutching my diploma and wearing my only professional suit from a discount store. The marble lobby intimidated me with its crystal chandeliers and oil paintings of stern-faced founding partners. My first cubicle measured 6 feet by 6 feet, squeezed between a broken copy machine and a supply closet that reeked of cleaning chemicals. My specialty became restructuring failing corporations and breathing new life into their dying operations. While other analysts focused on safe, predictable transactions, I gravitated toward the complex puzzles that required creative solutions. The more desperate the situation, the more energized I became. The Hartwell manufacturing case established my reputation as the fixer. When I inherited their file, the company was hemorrhaging $3 million monthly, with 8,000 employees facing unemployment. Their factory equipment dated back to the 1970s, their distribution network had collapsed, and their management team consisted of nepotism hires with no relevant experience. I spent 4 months living in a motel near their Detroit facility, studying every aspect of their operations. I discovered they possessed valuable patents for automotive components that competitors desperately needed. By licensing these patents while modernizing their production line, we transformed a bankrupt operation into an industry leader generating $47 million in annual profit. The second major victory came with Riverside Entertainment, a casino chain drowning in debt and regulatory violations. Their board hired Meridian specifically, requesting my involvement after reading about the Hartwell success. I restructured their financing, negotiated settlements with gaming commissions, and implemented accountability systems that restored public trust. The result was a 200% increase in stock value within 18 months. My third triumph involved Global Tech Solutions, a software company crippled by outdated programming and customer service disasters. I convinced them to pivot toward artificial intelligence applications while outsourcing their legacy support functions. The transformation yielded a $3.4 billion acquisition offer from a major technology corporation. Each success generated substantial fees for Meridian, but I noticed the executive team treated me like a useful tool rather than a valued colleague. CEO William Ashford embodied old money arrogance with his silver hair, custom suits, and condescending manner toward anyone lacking his privileged background. He attended Harvard Business School because his grandfather donated a library, not because of academic merit. My supervisor David Harrison represented everything wrong with corporate ladder climbing. He possessed moderate intelligence and unlimited ambition, constantly positioning himself to claim credit for others' achievements. Harrison graduated from a mediocre state school, but compensated through aggressive networking and strategic flattery of senior management. CFO Robert Sterling viewed employees as expense line items rather than human beings. His office walls displayed spreadsheets instead of family photos, and he measured success solely through quarterly profit margins. Sterling could calculate the cost savings of firing a department, but never considered the human consequences. Meridian's culture rewarded backstabbing and credit stealing while punishing collaboration and integrity. The company published glossy brochures about diversity and inclusion, but the executive floor remained exclusively male, Despite employing numerous qualified women, female employees face constant pressure to prove themselves while watching less competent men receive promotions and recognition. My personal life became collateral damage in my professional obsession. My college sweetheart Jonathan proposed during my second year at Meridian, but I postponed our wedding 3 times due to work commitments. Eventually, he stopped waiting and married someone who prioritized their relationship over quarterly earnings reports. My parents visited Chicago twice in 12 years, both times leaving early because I spent their entire visit answering work calls and reviewing client files. My mother cried during our last conversation, saying she felt like she had lost her daughter to a world she couldn't understand. Friendships became impossible to maintain when every social invitation conflicted with client deadlines or Harrison's manufactured emergencies. I stopped accepting dinner invitations and birthday celebrations, gradually isolating myself from anyone who might distract from professional advancement. Despite generating hundreds of millions in revenue for Meridian, I remained excluded from the inner executive circle where real decisions were made. Harrison made sure I learned about major announcements at the same time as junior staff, diminishing my status and limiting my strategic influence. The breaking point came during my annual performance review when Harrison presented his evaluation to Ashford's leadership team. I discovered through a sympathetic administrative assistant that Harrison had systematically taken credit for my work in his reports to senior management. According to his version, he conceived the Hartwell restructuring strategy while I merely executed his brilliant vision. He claimed ownership of the Riverside innovation and the global tech transformation, positioning himself as the mastermind behind every major success. This wasn't oversight or miscommunication. Harrison deliberately minimized my contributions while inflating his own role, setting the stage for his promotion at my expense. The betrayal cut deeper than any professional disappointment because I had trusted him to advocate for my achievements within the company hierarchy. 6 months before my termination, I closed the deal that would define my career and seal my fate. The Pinnacle Industries acquisition represented everything I had worked toward for over a decade. Pinnacle manufactured aerospace components for both commercial airlines and military contractors, but family feuds and mismanagement had driven them toward bankruptcy despite their valuable assets and government contracts. The negotiation process stretched across 4 months of 18-hour days, flying between their facilities in Seattle, Atlanta, and Phoenix while coordinating with lawyers, accountants, and regulatory officials. I structured a complex $3 billion transaction that preserved jobs while maximizing value for all stakeholders. Meridian's bonus structure rewarded exceptional performance through percentage-based compensation tied to deal values. My contract specified base salary plus 2% of any transaction exceeding $500 million. The Pinnacle deal earned me an unprecedented $6 million bonus, scheduled to vest on December 16 after the standard waiting period. Harrison's behavior shifted dramatically after the Pinnacle announcement. Previously, he maintained professional courtesy despite our underlying tension. Now, his hostility became obvious through deliberate exclusion from client meetings I had initiated. Delayed responses to urgent emails requiring immediate attention, and whispered conversations with other department heads that stopped abruptly when I approached. The subtle sabotage escalated into systematic undermining of my credibility. Harrison began spreading rumors about my difficult personality and inability to collaborate effectively with team members. He questioned my judgment in staff meetings and contradicted my recommendations without providing alternative solutions. IT restrictions appeared without explanation. My system access became limited, preventing me from reviewing certain client files and financial databases I needed for ongoing projects. Routine expense approvals that previously processed automatically now required multiple authorizations and supporting documentation. I found myself second-guessing every interaction, wondering if my paranoia was justified or if stress was distorting my perception. Sleep became elusive as my mind raced through potential scenarios and defensive strategies. I increased my caffeine intake to combat constant fatigue, surviving on energy drinks and determination. Carlos Rodriguez worked third-shift maintenance at our building, emptying trash bins and cleaning conference rooms after executives departed. Most employees ignored him completely, treating maintenance workers as invisible servants rather than human beings with eyes and ears. This invisibility made Carlos the perfect witness to conversations others assumed were private. One evening, Carlos approached my office during his cleaning rounds. His nervous demeanor indicated he had something important to share but worried about potential consequences. After ensuring we were alone, he revealed that he had overheard Harrison and Sterling discussing plans to terminate me before my bonus vested. Their conversation occurred in Sterling's office after a late executive meeting. Carlos was replacing burned-out light bulbs when they began calculating the financial impact of paying my bonus versus absorbing any potential legal costs from wrongful termination. Sterling estimated that firing me would boost quarterly profits significantly, impressing shareholders and board members focused on short-term results. This intelligence transformed my suspicions into certainty. They weren't questioning my performance or considering organizational restructuring. They were planning deliberate theft of earned compensation through manufactured justification for termination. My neighbor Emily Foster practiced employment law with a boutique firm specializing in executive compensation disputes. During weekend conversations over coffee, she educated me about legal protections available to senior employees facing corporate retaliation. Emily recommended documenting everything, understanding contract language, and preparing for potential litigation. I began studying employment law with the same intensity I applied to client deals. Federal statutes protected employees from termination based on gender, age, or retaliation for whistleblowing activities. State regulations added additional layers of security, particularly for executives with significant compensation packages. My contract review revealed complex language designed to protect the company while minimizing employee rights. However, careful analysis identified several clauses that could work in my favor if properly leveraged through strategic legal action. Documentation became my primary defense strategy. I installed sophisticated recording equipment in my office and common areas, taking advantage of New York's one-party consent law that permitted recording conversations without informing other participants. Screenshots captured every email exchange, system denial, and policy violation affecting my work environment. My younger sister Amanda worked as an investigative journalist for the Washington Herald, specializing in corporate corruption stories. Her professional experience taught her evidence preservation techniques that proved invaluable for building an airtight case against Meridian's executives. Amanda helped me establish secure storage systems for sensitive documents, create backup copies in multiple locations, and maintain detailed chronological records of every suspicious incident. She also connected me with federal investigators who specialized in white-collar crime cases involving corporate fraud and employee rights violations. The isolation intensified as Harrison systematically turned other team members against me. He implied that my success resulted from favoritism rather than competence, suggesting that management was reconsidering their commitment to promoting women into senior positions. Harrison's manipulation exploited existing insecurities and resentments, creating an hostile work environment where former allies became suspicious competitors. The climactic revelation came during another late-night encounter with Carlos. He had overheard Ashford and Harrison planning to fabricate performance issues that would justify immediate termination exactly 1 day before my bonus vested. Sterling had calculated the $6 million savings would create an impressive earnings surprise that could boost stock prices and executive bonuses tied to financial performance. Their plan involved manufacturing complaints from anonymous colleagues about my attitude and collaborative abilities. HR Director Patricia Wells would document these fabricated issues as part of a performance improvement plan that I would allegedly fail to complete successfully. The conversation Carlos witnessed revealed the cold calculation behind their betrayal. They weren't responding to legitimate performance concerns or organizational needs. They were orchestrating systematic theft through abuse of corporate power and manipulation of legal loopholes. This intelligence confirmed that my suspicions were absolutely justified. The corporate predators circling my compensation had revealed their strategy, giving me the opportunity to prepare countermeasures that would expose their corruption and protect my earned compensation through legal action. 8 months before my termination, while reviewing company policies for an unrelated client matter, I discovered an obscure employment clause buried in Section 15 of Meridian's Employee Handbook. Most people never read past the vacation policies and dress code requirements, but my legal training had taught me to examine every detail of important documents. The clause specified that any termination of employees with pending bonus payments exceeding $1 million required 45 days, advance notice, and an independent performance evaluation conducted by external consultants. This provision was clearly designed to prevent exactly the kind of scheme Harrison and Sterling were planning. My brilliant strategy emerged from understanding corporate psychology. Executives like Ashford rarely read operational details, delegating such mundane tasks to subordinates while focusing on high-level strategy and relationship management. If I could formally flag this clause to create an official paper trail, their subsequent violation would constitute clear evidence of deliberate misconduct. I crafted a carefully worded memo to HR Director Patricia Wells, requesting clarification of the clause and formal acknowledgement of its applicability to my employment situation. The certified mail delivery created an unalterable timestamp, proving that company leadership had received proper notification of legal protections surrounding my compensation. Wells responded with typical corporate dismissiveness, treating my inquiry as unnecessary anxiety from an overly cautious employee. Her email failed to address the substance of my concerns and included no formal acknowledgement of the clause's significance. This cavalier response would later become damaging evidence of institutional indifference toward employee rights. My preparation expanded beyond documentation to include comprehensive legal consultation with 3 different employment attorneys, specializing in executive compensation disputes. Each lawyer confirmed that Meridian's Employee Handbook created binding contractual obligations that could not be ignored without significant legal consequences. Thomas Garrett served on Meridian's board of directors as an independent member representing institutional investors. Unlike the other directors who were either company insiders or social connections of Ashford, Garrett had built his reputation through ethical business practices and genuine concern for employee welfare. I cultivated a professional relationship with Garrett through industry conferences and charitable events, never mentioning my concerns about Harrison or the brewing conflict over my bonus. Instead, I focused on discussing innovative approaches to corporate restructuring and employee retention strategies that impressed him with my strategic thinking. Financial Times journalist Karen Blake had been investigating corporate bonus theft practices across the financial services industry. Her series of articles exposed systematic efforts by major firms to avoid paying earned compensation through manufactured terminations and policy loopholes. Blake's investigative work provided valuable context for understanding how Meridian's scheme fit into broader patterns of corporate misconduct. Her contacts in regulatory agencies would prove essential when the time came to escalate my case beyond internal company procedures. The emotional preparation required therapy sessions with Dr. Margaret Stevens, a psychologist specializing in workplace trauma and corporate abuse. These sessions helped me develop coping mechanisms for the stress and isolation while maintaining focus on long-term strategic objectives rather than short-term emotional reactions. Physical fitness became crucial for managing anxiety and building resilience. I established a morning routine of running along Lake Michigan, using the exercise time to clear my mind and visualize successful outcomes. The endorphins from regular exercise counteracted the stress hormones generated by constant workplace tension. Meditation practice, initially skeptical territory for my analytical mindset, provided surprising benefits for emotional regulation and strategic thinking. 20 minutes of daily meditation created mental space between triggering events and my responses, allowing more thoughtful reactions to Harrison's provocations. My strategic planning encompassed multiple scenarios ranging from successful internal resolution to comprehensive legal warfare. I prepared files for wrongful termination lawsuits, media exposure campaigns, and regulatory complaints to various federal agencies with jurisdiction over employment practices. Recording equipment installation required careful consideration of legal requirements and technical reliability. New York's one-party consent law permitted recording conversations without informing other participants, provided at least one person involved in the conversation consented to the recording. I invested in professional-grade devices disguised as normal office supplies, creating an invisible surveillance network that would capture evidence of any conspiracy against my employment. The recordings were automatically uploaded to secure cloud storage systems with multiple backup locations. Evidence files grew systematically as I documented every client testimonial praising my work, every successful project outcome, and every instance of Harrison's sabotage or misconduct. The comprehensive record would make it impossible for them to fabricate performance issues without obvious contradiction. FBI white-collar crime specialists confirmed that the type of scheme Harrison and Sterling were planning could constitute federal fraud charges if executed as planned. The consultation provided valuable insight into prosecution standards and evidence requirements for criminal cases. The most shocking discovery emerged from my investigation into Harrison's financial activities. Cross-referencing client billing records with expense reports revealed systematic embezzlement through fake consulting fees paid to shell companies he controlled. Harrison had been stealing client funds for over 2 years, creating additional leverage and making him vulnerable to criminal prosecution. This embezzlement evidence transformed my position from defensive victim to strategic prosecutor. Harrison wasn't just planning to steal my bonus. He was already stealing from clients and could face federal criminal charges that would destroy his career and freedom. The foundation was now complete. Legal protections were documented and acknowledged. Evidence was preserved and secured, allies were positioned and informed, and additional ammunition was discovered and verified. When Harrison and Sterling executed their scheme, they would walk directly into a trap that would expose their corruption while protecting my earned compensation through multiple legal mechanisms. December 15th arrived with unseasonable warmth for Chicago, as if the weather itself was mocking the coldness I was about to experience. I woke at 5:30. Following my usual routine with deliberate precision. The morning run along Lake Michigan felt different. Each footstep marking time toward the confrontation I knew was coming. My breakfast consisted of steel-cut oats with blueberries and black coffee, the same meal I had eaten for 8 years. Consistency and small routines provided stability when everything else was about to change dramatically. I chose my navy blue suit, the one I wore for important client presentations, wanting to look professional and composed regardless of what transpired. Recording device activation became part of my preparation ritual, like checking my phone or applying lipstick. The sophisticated equipment would capture every word, every tone, every revealing slip of tongue that might prove useful in subsequent legal proceedings. Final evidence backup took 15 minutes, uploading the latest documentation to secure cloud storage systems accessible from multiple locations. If they confiscated my laptop or restricted my system access, the critical information would remain protected and available. Arriving at the office, I observed Harrison and Wells preparing for their orchestrated ambush. Their nervous energy was obvious to anyone paying attention. Harrison kept checking his watch and adjusting his tie, while Wells shuffled papers with unnecessary intensity. Their forced casual conversations fooled no one familiar with workplace dynamics. The sterile conference room they selected reinforced the institutional coldness of their plan. Fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows across the polished table, while motivational posters on the walls proclaimed values like integrity and teamwork that they were about to violate completely. Cheap tissues had been strategically placed near my designated seat, a patronizing gesture that assumed I would break down emotionally rather than respond strategically. Their underestimation of my preparation and resilience would become another critical error in their poorly conceived scheme. Harrison delivered his rehearsed speech with theatrical sincerity, citing manufactured performance deficiencies and alleged attitude problems that contradicted 12 years of documented excellence. His claims about my inability to collaborate effectively were particularly ironic given his systematic sabotage of my professional relationships. Wells contributed fabricated HR complaints from anonymous sources who supposedly found my behavior disruptive and unprofessional. The timing of these complaints coincided suspiciously with my bonus vesting date, rather than any actual performance incidents. My responses were minimal and carefully measured. I acknowledged their statements without agreement or argument, maintaining professional dignity while they revealed their desperation. Every word they spoke was being recorded for future legal proceedings. The termination document Harrison presented contained several factual errors about my employment history and performance record. These mistakes would later demonstrate the hurried, careless nature of their fabrication rather than legitimate documentation of employment issues. Security escort procedures felt designed to maximize humiliation rather than protect company property. 2 guards accompanied me to my office while colleagues watched from their cubicles and conference rooms. Some showed genuine shock at my sudden departure, while others displayed smugness that revealed their prior knowledge of the plan. Packing personal items under watchful supervision, I took only legitimate belongings. Family photos, a small plant from my sister, and personal books unrelated to work. I deliberately left behind all company property and client files, demonstrating respect for professional boundaries despite their violation of employment agreements. The walk through the office lobby with my cardboard box became a symbolic journey from corporate employee to independent agent. Former colleagues averted their eyes, or whispered among themselves, uncertain how to respond to the unprecedented termination of their most successful peer. Client phone calls began immediately, with major accounts expressing confusion and concern about my sudden departure. The Peterson Industries CEO threatened to reconsider their ongoing relationship with Meridian if I was no longer available to manage their account. My evening was deliberately calm and reflective. Thai food from my favorite neighborhood restaurant provided comfort while I reviewed recorded conversations from the termination meeting. Harrison's comments revealed the calculated nature of their scheme far more clearly than they realized. Activation of my pre-planned legal response began with calls to employment attorneys, regulatory contacts, and journalist allies who had been briefed about potential developments. The machinery of justice started moving within hours of my termination. Harrison's premature celebration dinner with Sterling at an expensive downtown restaurant demonstrated their confidence that the scheme had succeeded. They were unaware that their entire conversation was being recorded by the same surveillance equipment that had captured the termination meeting. The most damaging evidence emerged during the termination meeting itself, when Wells accidentally revealed that Ashford had personally ordered my firing to save money rather than address any legitimate performance concerns. This admission destroyed any pretense that the termination was based on merit rather than financial manipulation. Their crucial mistake was underestimating my preparation and overestimating their own cleverness. They assumed I would accept the termination passively, collect my belongings, and disappear quietly. Instead, they had just triggered a legal earthquake that would expose their corruption and destroy their careers while vindicating my professional reputation. 2 hours after my termination, Janet Morrison began her routine legal review of the paperwork in the executive conference room. The mahogany table was littered with termination documents, policy manuals, and hastily printed email chains that Harrison and Wells had assembled to justify their actions. Morrison's initial scan revealed several procedural irregularities that raised immediate red flags. The timeline was suspiciously compressed, the documentation appeared incomplete, and the justifications contradicted previous performance evaluations that praised my contributions extensively. Deeper investigation led Morrison to the employee handbook section containing the protective clause I had flagged 8 months earlier. As she read the specific language requiring 45-day notice and independent evaluation for high-value bonus terminations, her expression shifted from routine boredom to growing concern. The clause was unambiguous and legally binding. Any termination of employees with pending bonuses exceeding $1 million must follow specific procedures designed to prevent exactly the kind of financial manipulation Harrison and Sterling had attempted. Morrison removed her glasses slowly, a habitual gesture when confronting serious legal problems. She stared directly at Ashford, who was reviewing stock reports while assuming the termination was proceeding smoothly according to plan. "We have a significant problem," Morrison announced, her voice cutting through the casual conversation. The room fell silent as she explained the legal implications of violating clearly established company policy. Ashford's face drained of color as he realized the magnitude of their exposure. The $6 million bonus was legally protected, and their violation created potential liability far exceeding any savings they hoped to achieve. Harrison's desperate attempt to blame Morrison for the legal oversight only made the situation worse. His accusation that she should have warned them about the clause revealed his assumption that lawyers should help circumvent rather than enforce legal protections. Morrison's explanation of potential legal consequences was comprehensive and terrifying. Wrongful termination, breach of contract, age discrimination, gender discrimination, and retaliation for whistleblowing activities could each generate substantial damages. The combination of multiple violations could result in punitive awards reaching tens of millions of dollars. Emergency consultation with external legal counsel confirmed Morrison's assessment and added conspiracy to defraud charges as another potential risk. The pattern of deliberate coordination between multiple executives to circumvent legal protections met federal standards for criminal fraud prosecution. Financial exposure calculations created immediate panic. The $6 million bonus represented only the beginning of their liability. Punitive damages, legal fees, and regulatory penalties could easily reach $30 million or more, devastating the company's quarterly performance. The revelation that I had strategically documented everything through recordings and written evidence intensified their fear. Professional testimony from employment law experts would establish clear patterns of retaliation and discrimination that juries typically find sympathetic. Sterling's discovery of Harrison's embezzlement added another dimension to the crisis. The fake consulting fees and shell company schemes created federal criminal exposure that could trigger FBI investigation and prosecution. Board member Garrett's immediate demand for explanation revealed the director's fury about unauthorized termination of the company's top performer without proper consultation. His threats of independent investigation and potential leadership changes added political pressure to the legal consequences. Stock price volatility reflected investor concerns about executive decision-making and potential legal liability. Financial press coverage of the controversy attracted regulatory attention that could result in formal investigations and sanctions. Morrison's most shocking discovery came while reviewing my correspondence files. My certified letter to the board of directors 3 months earlier had officially notified them of the protective clause and requested written confirmation of bonus security. The certified mail receipt proved that board members had received explicit warning about legal protections surrounding my compensation. Their failure to prevent the violation demonstrated either gross negligence or willful indifference to employee rights. This documentation transformed the situation from potential oversight to clear evidence of institutional misconduct. Board members could face personal liability for failing to prevent violations they knew were legally prohibited. Morrison's recommendation was immediate damage control through comprehensive settlement negotiations. The alternative was protracted litigation that would expose additional evidence of corporate misconduct while generating negative publicity and regulatory scrutiny. Their desperate attempts to contact me through multiple channels met with strategic silence. Every voicemail, email, and certified letter went unanswered while they realized the extent of their vulnerability. The legal earthquake had begun, and the aftershocks would continue destroying their carefully constructed corporate empire until justice was finally achieved. The first week following my termination unleashed chaos that exceeded my most optimistic predictions. My strategic silence while Meridian imploded created psychological pressure that amplified their panic and poor decision-making. Major clients demanded immediate explanation for my sudden departure, threatening contract cancellations worth $200 million in annual revenue. The Peterson Industries CEO was particularly aggressive, stating that their $3 billion relationship with Meridian was contingent on my continued involvement in their ongoing projects. Pinnacle Industries delivered the most devastating blow by threatening to void our recently completed acquisition deal unless I was immediately reinstated to oversee the integration process. Their position was contractually defensible because their agreement specifically named me as the primary relationship manager. Emergency board meetings revealed the director's explosive fury about unauthorized high-risk termination without proper consultation or legal review. Independent board members like Garrett threatened to resign unless immediate corrective action addressed both the legal violations and leadership failures. Harrison became the designated scapegoat as Ashford attempted to save his own position by claiming ignorance about the termination details. This betrayal destroyed any remaining loyalty between them and created additional evidence of institutional dysfunction. Desperate reconciliation attempts escalated daily as their situation deteriorated. Initial offers of immediate reinstatement with apology expanded to include promotion to senior vice president and equity partnership positions previously reserved for elite executives. Media attention intensified when Financial Times published Karen Blake's exposé about corporate bonus theft practices, featuring Meridian as a case study in systematic employee abuse. The article generated nationwide discussion about executive compensation ethics and worker protection rights. Regulatory investigations launched simultaneously by SEC, Department of Labor, and IRS created multiple enforcement actions that threatened criminal prosecution and civil penalties. Each agency possessed different investigative powers and legal standards that maximized potential consequences. Competitor firms aggressively recruited me with massive signing bonuses and equity deals that exceeded my Meridian compensation significantly. These offers validated my market value while demonstrating industry support for my professional reputation. Harrison's consultation with criminal defense attorneys became public knowledge when legal invoices were accidentally included in company financial disclosures. The revelation that he faced potential federal prosecution intensified media coverage and client concerns. Morrison's resignation in protest of unethical corporate practices generated additional negative publicity. Her public statements supporting my case carried significant weight because of her senior position and professional reputation within the legal community. Institutional investors expressed concerns about corporate governance and executive decision-making through formal communications with board leadership. Wellington Capital's threat to divest their $800 million stake created immediate pressure for leadership changes. Employee morale collapsed as staff members realized that exceptional performance provided no protection against arbitrary termination for financial reasons. Several senior executives began exploring opportunities with competitors rather than risk similar treatment. Shareholder lawsuits filed by pension funds and individual investors alleged breach of fiduciary duty and corporate waste through mismanagement of human resources and legal compliance. These cases created additional financial exposure and negative publicity. Ashford's personal legal team activation demonstrated his growing recognition that criminal charges were possible if federal investigators discovered evidence of conspiracy to defraud or securities violations related to bonus manipulation. The corporate culture that had rewarded backstabbing and credit stealing now consumed itself, as executives blamed each other for the crisis, while seeking individual protection through separate legal representation. Harrison's isolation became complete when former allies distanced themselves to avoid contamination from his embezzlement charges and criminal exposure. His professional network disappeared overnight as colleagues prioritized their own career preservation. Wellington Capital's ultimatum created the final pressure point that forced immediate action. Their threat of complete divestiture would trigger broader institutional selling that could collapse the stock price and threaten the company's financial stability. The corporate meltdown had reached critical mass, with multiple crises converging to destroy the carefully constructed facade of legitimate business operations. Justice was accelerating toward its inevitable conclusion through market forces, legal proceedings, and regulatory enforcement actions that I had strategically triggered through documented evidence and strategic patience. Final settlement negotiations began 3 weeks after my termination, as Meridian's legal position became completely untenable. Emily Foster, my employment attorney, demanded $12 million, representing double bonus plus punitive damages, public apology, executive terminations, and comprehensive policy reforms. Harrison's criminal plea bargain became the first domino to fall. Faced with overwhelming evidence of embezzlement and potential 20-year federal prison sentence, he accepted guilt to reduce charges requiring full restitution, 2 years incarceration, and lifetime ban from financial services industry. His courthouse confession provided additional evidence for my civil case, while demonstrating that Meridian's executives had engaged in systematic criminal behavior extending beyond my wrongful termination. The embezzlement conviction validated my claims about institutional corruption. Ashford's forced resignation came during an emergency board meeting where independent directors demanded immediate leadership changes to preserve investor confidence and prevent further legal exposure. His departure package included no severance benefits and forfeiture of unvested stock options. The new CEO, Elizabeth Manning, was recruited from a competitor specifically because of her reputation for ethical leadership and employee advocacy. Her first priority was settling my case and implementing reforms that would prevent similar violations. My decision to reject Meridian's reinstatement offers surprised many industry observers who expected me to return triumphantly to my previous position. However, the betrayal had fundamentally changed my perspective about corporate loyalty and personal priorities. Integrity Financial Solutions launched 6 months later as my independent consulting firm specializing in ethical corporate restructuring and employee advocacy. The name reflected my commitment to business practices that prioritized honesty and fairness over short-term profit maximization. Top talent disgusted by corporate corruption flocked to join my firm, including Morrison, who became general counsel after leaving Meridian in protest. Our employee handbook emphasized transparency, equity, and respect for individual contributions rather than hierarchical power structures. Major clients followed me from Meridian, ensuring immediate profitability and industry credibility. Peterson Industries signed an exclusive consulting agreement, while Pinnacle Industries requested my continued involvement in their integration process. Personal transformation accompanied professional success as I finally achieved the work-life balance that had eluded me throughout my corporate career. Healthier boundaries allowed time for family relationships, romantic involvement, and personal interests beyond financial transactions. Reconnection with my Montana family healed wounds that had festered for years due to my single-minded career focus. My parents finally understood that my professional struggles were about principles rather than money, respect rather than recognition. Nathan Brooks, a fellow entrepreneur building sustainable technology companies, became my romantic partner through mutual friends in the ethical business community. His values aligned with my own commitment to social responsibility and honest success. Congressional testimony about corporate abuse and worker protection legislation provided a platform for advocating systemic changes beyond individual cases. My experience became a catalyst for broader discussions about employment rights and executive accountability. Industry recognition through the Financial Executive of the Year Award validated my courage in fighting institutional corruption rather than accepting injustice quietly. The award ceremony provided an opportunity to inspire other professionals facing similar challenges. Mentorship programs for young professionals became a passion project, teaching legal protection strategies and ethical career development to people entering corporate environments. My experience could help others avoid similar betrayals through preparation and awareness. 6 months after launching my firm, we were managing $800 million in assets while employing 30 people committed to ethical business practices. Our success demonstrated that integrity and profitability were compatible rather than contradictory objectives. Reconciliation with my sister Amanda, strengthened through our shared advocacy for worker rights and corporate accountability. Her journalistic expertise combined with my business experience created powerful platforms for exposing corruption and promoting reform. Personal reflection on the difference between winning and being right revealed that my greatest victory was maintaining ethical standards despite tremendous pressure to compromise. The financial compensation was satisfying, but the moral vindication was transformative. Deep life lessons emerged about the importance of preparation, documentation, and legal awareness for protecting yourself in corporate America. Success requires both professional competence and strategic thinking about potential threats to your achievements. Understanding that true power comes from integrity rather than climbing corporate hierarchies changed my definition of career success. Building ethical businesses that respect employees creates lasting value beyond individual advancement. The final scene of my story takes place in my new office overlooking Chicago's skyline, feeling genuine peace for the first time in years. The view reminds me that personal integrity creates a foundation for lasting success that external forces cannot destroy. Emotional closure encompasses satisfaction with justice served, excitement about building ethical businesses, and gratitude for lessons learned through adversity. The betrayal that could have destroyed my career instead became the catalyst for creating something better. My keynote speech at the Women in Finance conference reached hundreds of professionals struggling with similar challenges. The message was simple: document everything, understand your rights, build strategic alliances, and never compromise your integrity for corporate advancement. The question I pose to anyone facing workplace injustice is this: will you accept unfair treatment quietly, or will you fight back strategically with preparation, evidence, and unwavering commitment to what is right? Your response to betrayal defines not just your career, but your character. Have you ever experienced workplace betrayal or witnessed corporate corruption that made you question whether fighting back was worth the risk? Share your story in the comments below and let me know what strategies helped you overcome professional challenges while maintaining your integrity. If this story resonated with your own experiences or inspired you to stand up for your rights, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more stories about triumph over injustice, and share this message with anyone who might benefit from learning that preparation and courage can overcome even the most powerful corporate predators. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to triumph. Remember that your integrity is your most valuable asset, and no amount of money is worth compromising your principles. Until next time, keep fighting for what is right. And never let anyone steal what you have earned through honest work and dedication.